Middle-aged woman named Kath and her boyfriends Max travel several hours to a woodland cabin which Max has rented for the weekend. Kath is middle-aged while he's in his 30s. They arrive at the cabin and find a man named Al standing outside claiming he also rented the place. Al tries to make them leave regardless. Max explains that it's late and dark outside, but Al's girlfriend Greta appears and suggests that the two can stay with them for the night. Greta and Al both are wearing green coats and they look around 20. Inside the cabin, Max finds a theme board game, Pillow Talk, a romantic game that reconnects lovers and everyone agree to play. Basically they will take turn to get the card and do what in the card says. In her turn the card asks Kath to recount how she and Max met. Kath tells them that she met him when he was a student at one of her class in gardening. At the end of the class, he asked Kath out and they started to date. When it's Greta's turn, Greta has to lick the elbow of the player to the right, which is Max. She licks and bites Max's elbow. Kath is weirded out and decide to goes to bed early while other three still stay up. The next morning, Kath wakes up to find the cabin empty. She walks out into the woods and finds Al crying. He said that he found Max and Greta hooked up and have run off together. Kath is mad and shocked and returned to the city alone. Back at home, Kath talks with a friend who tells her to move on. But Kath still seeks disclosure for what happened, so her friend suggests she finds out who Greta is. She can't find Greta information online, but she finds the cabin owner, Nicholas Barlow, and his contact. She calls him and lies to him that she has Greta's book and wants Greta's number so she can return a book. Nick won't give out the number as it's confidential but will drive to Kath's nursery store to pick up the book. Later Nicholas arrives at the store, and while Kath struggles to make an excuse, an obnoxious customer comes in and asks for refund on the dying plant he hasn't watered. Nicholas steps in and acts as if the plant is a rare kind and tries auction to get it. The customer gets fooled and stops bothering Kath and leaves with the plant. After that Kath thanks Nicholas and reveals to him her real motive of contacting him. She offers to buy him coffee. While she telling him about what happened at the cabin, a stranger passes by and recognizes Nicholas and reveals who he is, a brilliant scientist who is now retired but was involved in a famous biotech startup. The stranger starts to be annoying and pitching his idea, so Nicholas decides to leave the coffee shop while Kath is too stunned to speak and become the next target of the pitches. Flashback to a week earlier, Kath is hosting a dinner with her friends. Max, feeling bored, decides to troll them. Kath and one of her friends jokingly get back at him, and Max, butthurt, makes an excuse to leave to get more wine. At the grocery store, he runs into Al and Greta, who are in the midst of an argument. Max awkwardly attempts to start a conversation with them. Al seems annoyed, but Greta answers and invites him to join them for a drink, to which he quickly agrees. In the present, Kath calls Nicholas again to ask for Greta's address because she desperately needs an explanation. He questions her decision, and she confirms. Nicholas agrees to help Kath, and they drive to Greta's house. While in the car, Kath asks why he left the biotech startup. Nicholas explains that he left because his father was sick and died from a genetic neuron disease. He wanted to be with him during his last years. When Kath asks about the disease and if he has it too, he reveals that he is working on a treatment cure. After a while, they see Greta leaves the house, and they decide to follow her. Greta leads them to an underground party, and Kath attempts to enter but is stopped by the bouncer. Greta appears, and Kath confronts her about Max's disappearance. Greta nervously admits that she likes Max, but Kath remains unconvinced. Suddenly, people exiting the club accidentally bump into Greta, causing her to drop her phone, showing a screenlock photo of her and Max sleeping together. Kath leaves with certainty that Max ran off with his new girl, feeling broken, and Nicholas is waiting for her outside. Cut to the time when Max hangs out with Greta and Al after leaving the grocery store. They take him to an underground party where Greta flirts with him and listens to all his BS. She invites him to the cabin, hinting at some exciting experiences awaiting him there. While talking he cut himself and Greta use her craft knife to clean the wound for him. Max returns home 2 hours later, finding Kath cleaning. She tells him to grow up, and Max blames Kath and her friends for being too boring. He wants them to be more spontaneous and experience new things, but Kath disagrees, implying that all of his ideas were stupid. After the heat cools off a bit, Max apologizes and suggests the trip to the cabin, but doesn't mention anything about Greta and Al. He finally manages to convince her. In the present, Kath and Nicholas are hitting it off, and Nicholas comforts Kath by sharing that his wife left with their baby son a long time ago. He discloses that his cure involves a transfusion treatment. Cut to the time when Max and Kath are driving to the cabin, but now from Al and Greta's POV. They are expecting Max to be alone and are wearing green lab coats ready to experiment on him. Al panics when he discovers Max isn't alone and they improvise, putting on an act for Kath about the double booking. The next morning, after Kath leaves, Al rushes back to the cabin. Greta hides behind it with a drugged Max sleeping inside a barrel next to her. The drug seems to wear off, and they use more. While Greta checks the drawers inside the house, she finds a letter. Her expression changes, but she doesn't say anything. Back in the present, Kath drives to the cabin to give Nicholas a tiny avocado plant as a gift. He invites her for tea, leaves to gather wood to boil water, and leaves a bundle of keys on the table. Kath browses through his books and finds a photo of a younger Nicholas holding a baby. She flips the photo over, revealing that it's a picture of Nicholas and Al. It turns out Al is his son. It shows that Nicholas also returning to the cabin when Al and Greta have Max. Al is concerned about Nicholas's health and wants to ensure his survival. Greta opens the barrel lid, showing an unconscious Max inside, and Nicholas is shocked. Al explains that it's all Nicholas needs, and they did it for him. Greta says she checked Max's blood and it's compatible with Nicholas. Initially reluctant, Nicholas eventually agrees to their plan. At this moment, Greta takes a selfie with her and the sleepy Max, later using it to deceive Kath. In the present, Kath senses Nicholas's involvement in the mess and grabs the keys, exploring the cabin. She discovers a shipping container in the woods and unlocks it, revealing medical equipment, monitors, and Max in a hospital bed hooked to a transfusion machine with a tube on his neck. In the woods, Nicholas meets Al and Greta, who are hiding out. Greta is upset that Nicholas allowed Kath to stay alone in the cabin, and run in to check, but they realize she's not there anymore. They find her in the shipping container, and Kath demands them to release Max. Al and Greta, also scientists, explain that they cannot let Max go, as both Nicholas and Al's lives depend on the Max as their blood supply. Greta chuckles at Nicholas' explanation and discloses a big secret. Nicholas tested negative for the disease. The letter she read earlier was about his test result. She accuses Nicholas of deceiving his son into kidnapping Max for his selfish reasons. Nicholas admits that he doesn't want to age and weaken like his father because he wants to spend more time with his son. And he initially kept Kath out of the situation but gradually grew close to her. Hearing this, Kath plays on Nicholas's sympathy, claiming that she also wants the transfusion to stay young and that the fear of aging terrifies her every day. This revelation means Greta also needs to be used for her treatment. Al and Nicholas subdue Greta with a sedative, believing Kath's story. However, it's all a ruse, as Kath tries to walk out with Max. A disoriented Max rips the tube from his neck, bleeding out and dying. Nicholas attempts to salvage his blood supply but fails. Taking advantage of the chaos, Kath runs out of the container and locks Al, Greta, and Nicholas inside. She sits in her car to collect herself and then walks into the cabin, opens a window, and gazes outside. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.